Hello, and welcome to the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast where we discuss the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And my name is Jessica Tercero.
And this week, we set sail on the oceans of 8 and 11.
And 8. Wait, we went...
Oh, yeah, we did the opposite.
You know what? It's okay. It's cool.
Yeah, we did Oceans 11 and Oceans 8.
We did, yeah. The Oceans 11 from 2001. I did not realize that was a remake.
It was like a Rat Pack remake, right?
Yeah, I had no idea. And when I was looking up stuff for Oceans 11, it was like the 2001 cast of Oceans 11 actually thought that the Rat Pack's version was boring and didn't like it and couldn't get through it. Like, they were all like, yeah, no, fuck that. That sucks. Like, both Clooney and Julia Roberts and shit like that. So I was like, wait, so why did you decide to make this? Because, like, there was, like, this whole thing about that movie where everybody that was supposed to be in it made this pact. They were like, look, I know that we won't be able to get paid what we're worth for this movie, but it just has to happen. So they all, like, lowered their salary or whatever so they could all be in this one movie. And they were like, the most important thing is that this movie is made. And I was like, wait, why if you didn't even like the fucking movie? Like, I don't understand.
If you didn't like it in the first place, why'd you remake it? That seems like I'll read about that. That seems a little high and mighty. Seems a little high on your own supply. Everybody in this cast
is kind of high and mighty, so.
I guess so, yeah. Like, we have to be the ones to retell this iconic story. And you're like, well.
And it's weird, too, because, like, there's at least 3 cast members that, like, turned this down to go. 3 of them did, like, the Royal Tenenbaums. And then Mark Wahlberg was supposed to be in it. And he had a bunch of shit to say. Like, he still talks shit on this movie.
He can talk shit until the day he dies. He sucks. I hate Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. But he was just like, he was like, well, see, I went, like, and instead of doing that one movie, I did 2 shitty movies. This movie sucked, okay? But, like, I did 2 movies, and they both sucked, too. And I was like, okay. Like, all right.
Jesus. I don't usually have visceral, like, generalized hate towards people, but he is an actual piece of shit. He is a racist, abusive garbage can. I can't. Like, Mark Wahlberg can go fuck himself. I hate him so much. I am saying that canon on the pod. Obviously, this isn't a hot take. This isn't like a, what? Because, I mean, I feel like a lot of people will agree that he is a hot can full of shit. I really hate him. I hate him so much. Yeah.
So you're very glad that he wasn't in this movie.
I'm so happy he wasn't in this movie. Because, and this is going to be great because I liked it and you didn't.
Ocean's 11 is a very forgettable movie to me. It's a throwaway movie. And it's just like, oh, cool, like a heist movie. All right, fine. Like, I like heist movies, like the plans and all the things. But to me, like, I don't know. I loved Ocean's 8. I feel like this movie was just kind of like everybody getting themselves off on how cool they are. And, like, I guess also throughout the filming of this too, like, they all stayed at the Bellagio and they all, like, every fucking night was exactly what you think it would be with this group of people in Vegas for like a month straight.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
See, to me, you say forgettable. For me, I'm like, do not get me wrong, it was a forgettable movie, but in the way that I know that heist movies as a genre are supposed to be like high stakes, switcheroos, plot twist, and another plot twist. Like, it's supposed to be like big bang boom, like, look over here, now look over here, boom, boom, boom. But to me, like, even with that, they're kind of so formulaic in the expectation of, like, we're going to be double crossed 17 times in this film. To me, that's what makes it forgettable, is like the fact that it's so, but that's, to me, that's generalized heist movies. Like in the same way that we were talking earlier, National Treasure is kind of forgettable and bad, but it's so silly and expected where it's just like, I'm not looking at this to be like this pivotal moment of like cinematic artistic vision. It is just a silly movie about them wanting to steal money from a casino. And I'm like, yes, this is bad. And then, oh my God, we have a lot to say about the first one. I know, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
Me too. Yeah, this is going to be great. So I'd seen Ocean's 11 before, and it had been like a fucking long time since I've seen it, but I had not seen Ocean's 8, and I'd been wanting to because it's like the girl reboot or whatever, but like this is actually set in the same universe. And I feel like this kind of got the same hate that everything else gets, right? Because it's like, everybody hated Ghostbusters, but the reboot was fucking great. And then, like, I feel like people just hated on this because it's like, oh, well, now they're going to do it with girls. So, but I would argue that it was a better written movie, like dialogue wise.
I would argue the opposite, and we'll get into that later. Okay. I'm gonna preface, because I saw it in theaters. Eric and I were really excited to see this movie because it looked great. Saw it in theaters, loved it. Saw it at home later, loved it. Watching it after Ocean's 11, I liked it less. I don't dislike it. I still love it. I think it's a great movie. I have so much fun with it every time I watch it. But it's so bizarre to me that watching Ocean's 11 made me like it less. And I want to get into that when we talk about it. I want to get into it when we talk about it because I don't want to unpack it.
I think it's the opposite for me. Yeah.
Yeah. See, okay.
I think cool. I liked it more because I hated Ocean, or I didn't hate, but I was just kind of like, whatever, Oceans.
No, I am excited. This is going to be very fun.
Let's do this.
Let's do it. Okay.
After getting released from prison, cool guy Danny Ocean heads to Las Vegas with a plan to steal an enormous amount of money from the casino tycoon Terry Benedict. He meets up with his friend Rusty, and together they assemble the best of the best in fraudulence and thievery. But wait, is it really just an elaborate plan to get his wife Tess back because it turns out she's dating Mr. Benedict? Maybe.
They train. They steal a science thing. They blow the fake vault up. They blow the real vault up. Someone has a heart attack. Is that the SWAT team? No, it's Ocean's 11.
Ocean's 11.
Boom. So, like we said in the intro, I loved it. You were lukewarm on it. Let's start at the beginning. That terrible slice of life setting this story in the real world with some B-list celebrities at a poker game. Did you know that the people at the poker match behind the bar that he's teaching them how to play, they're like real life celebrities of the time?
Oh, I thought we were going to get into the beginning where it's just him being a privileged white asshole that is able to get out of, like, smooth talk his way out of prison.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, cool. I'm good with that too. Yes. But that's the whole point of like the fraudulence and the like smooth, like he can wiggle his way in anything and get out of it just the same, right? Like this is more of a big conversation about like incarceration and for-profit prisons and that whole idea, and how if you look a certain way you can get off on good behavior or whatever, whereas that same benefit's not afforded to black folks or brown folks or any folks of color generally, right? So yes, absolutely. But to me, in this moment, in this movie, I feel like it's important to have that conversation of privilege, but this felt more, I mean, obviously it's illustrating the fact that he's slick, he's sly, he's like bad, but they're trying to make him like a hero. So he's so bad, he's good. Like, look how good he just did. Like, you know what I mean? It's that whole like,
I mean, sure, but he's like an arrogant asshole, right? And he super gets off on that. And like he's rewarded for being kind of a shit to the people interviewing him before he's like about to get out or whatever. And if that was anybody but a white dude, I feel like that would not have happened. So I know that it's like to develop his character, but like by doing that, that's just showing like such a wild amount of privilege. And I know that like this whole thing like hinges on the stupidity, like white privilege, yes, but also like the like they take advantage of so many stupid white people that like Brad Pitt is able to like pose as a cop and be like, oh yeah, I got him, I'm gonna take him, right? And so it's like I get it, but like that was something that watching this I could not, because they're all just like so fucking arrogant. So, like, but I couldn't not think about it.
Yes, I could not agree with you more as far as like there is not really anybody in this crew who I really like very much apart from Yen, because he's just there. Like, I'm happy for him. He's gonna get in, get out, get his money. Cute, we love. But to me, going into it, I'm like, generally, everybody here in this motley crew of folks is, for one reason or another, bad or shitty or not great, right? Mm-hmm. There's a part of me that's also just kind of like, yes, steal from the rich, take their money. I love it. But I'm also like, all of these people are also wealthy white people for the most part.
Right.
So I'm also like, well, okay, sure, steal from the rich, but also like, aren't you guys already rich? Like, what are we doing? You just want to get more rich? Cool. So you're Jeff Bezos. We got it. Go fuck yourself.
Then, like, the whole movie is based on revenge because a woman left him, right?
Yes.
So,
well,
like,
she left
that's
him
like
because he
the
went
other
to
thing.
jail.
So it's a bunch of shitty white dudes, and then like the whole like motivation is because a girl hurt me.
Yeah,
and I'm like, all right, whatever.
So to me too. Also, I feel the same way. I think going into it, like I was saying about heist movies in general, my stakes for heist movies is so low. I don't go in with any like expectations. I'm like, this is going to be a weird little roller coaster. I'm closing my eyes and I'm opening it when we're at the top of the hill. Take me there. I don't like, you know what I mean? So in this moment, I don't know. Danny Ocean's trash. Like, there's no getting around the fact that he's a bad person who manipulates the people around him to get the things that he wants in an incredibly selfish way, right? Like, everybody on this heist team, he's putting their lives in jeopardy because he wants to get back his ex-wife who left him because he was a bad partner, but also he got put in prison and she was just like, what do you expect me to do? Like, you've been gone for how many years? I'm not going to just sit and wait. You disappeared. What do you want from me? Mm-hmm. But he's like, you should just take me back. So he puts all their whole plan in jeopardy because of this. And then still has
the whole plan is based on her.
Yes.
The plan wouldn't exist without her. So
yes,
like,
but their knowledge of it is non-existent. And then when it gets brought to them, they're like, either you're out or we're scrapping the whole plan because
but that was part of the plan.
Exactly. And that to me, I'm like, cool. I'm happy he's an asshole. So then there's this tension. So later when it's like, JK, part of the plan, I'm like, oh, you got me. You guys got me. Oh, I had no idea. So I'm just like here for that. But at the same time, even that plan, like the moment when he's like, big air quotes, getting beat up, and then comes out, and then they call Julia Roberts, Tess, they call her room after the fight and all that stuff. They're like, turn on your TV or whatever. And she does. And it's a security camera footage of him asking her current husband, if I find out how to get your money back, what's more important, Tess or money? And he's like instantly like, money. And then that's it. Like, so to me, it's still performative manipulation to try to sway somebody, and that's still garbage. So this big like, look, he's a good guy. He's just like, this guy doesn't love you like I love you. No, this is not Ya's Maps. How dare you? That's not what we're doing here. You're still a bad guy. This is all performative showmanship to try to woo somebody, but it's still manipulation. You're still manipulating the situation to make it look like something that it's not. You asshole. Just because you're making the other bad person look bad doesn't mean that you're good. You're both bad. Like,
right.
You both exist as badness. And I didn't like that she felt like she was just like, I'm going to run to him now. I'm like, that's out of character.
I super hated that. Yeah.
No, thank you.
And then she's like, oh, I saved my wedding ring and I know you're in prison, but I'm just going to wait this time. Like, because to me, it felt like, I don't know, like with her going back to him at the end, it felt very gross. It felt like she was just following wealth, right? Like, because now Tony has no money. And so now this guy like pulled it off and like, oh, he's clever and he has all the money. Sure, I'll wait this time. And then she like ends up like, she told him that she sold the wedding ring, but like she actually like still had it. And like, I hated everything about her character. And also, so this whole movie is about getting her back. And she's basically the only woman that we see in the movie, aside from a couple of strippers that are on screen for 0.5 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Or our background decoration. And we don't see an actual woman character until 45 fucking minutes into the movie. Julia Roberts enters in 45 fucking minutes into the movie. And then we see her like, and she's like an art curator for like a second. And then when George Clooney starts to talk to her about like her work, he's like, oh, well, didn't this guy kill himself or whatever? And so he's talking about the person and not the art, and like further talking down to her and just like belittling her and her career and her life choices and all this stuff. And I'm just like, why the fuck? Why do you like him? Why does he like her? He likes her because she left. But like, I don't I don't get it, because we don't know anything else about Tess other than she's a woman.
I mean, less so a woman, more so just an object. Like, she's not even, I feel like in the narrative of this, she's not even seen as a person. She's really just seen as, because like, what was it? Brad Pitt, or was it Matt Damon? One of the white 90s guys. She's like, they're talking about how Tess showed up, and he's like, how'd she look? And then he says, she looked good. And George Clooney's response is, thanks. Like, thanks for what? Why thank you?
Doesn't want to know anything about her. Just like, oh, how'd she look? Yeah.
But also like, thanks. What do you mean? Thanks. Oh, that's right. Because you own her. I forgot. She's your property and your property looks good. So thank you for saying my property looks good. You know what I mean? Like, and it's supposed to be like a fun boys hot girl, but it's really like, no, this is a really like big air quotes fun way to explain that men think they own and control women.
Right. And it was like, if you think about the other women that we had, so she was obviously a shell of a woman, even though she's like the main person in all of this, right? But then like we talked to like the stripper that gets the key card for Rusty, and he's like, hey, say hi to your mom, and like her whole line is, oh, you could say hi to her yourself. She's on in 30 minutes or something. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, cool. So like, this isn't even like a cool, like empowering moment or anything. This is just kind of like, women are objects and women are tools, or like, you know, we only kind of see their bodies like in the background in these like provocative ways. And I'm just like, okay. And then like you're saying, like fucking Clooney, like putting his hand on her shoulder and like imposing himself on her physically. And I'm just like, I don't understand. Like he just like, is just so manipulative with him trying to, he's like, you're my wife. And she's like, ex-wife. And he's like, wife, whatever. Like he keeps calling her his wife. So he's like gaslighting her in this way. And then anytime she tries to like build herself up, she's like, your problem is you know too many people like you. He's like, yeah, but your guy now doesn't make you laugh. And she's like, okay, but he doesn't make me cry. And he's like, yeah, but, he doesn't make you laugh. And look, I had to leave because I went to jail and your new dude sucks. And she's like, what the fuck? Like, but yeah, just like this whole thing is just a huge elaborate thing to like literally be like, look, I'm the better guy. Yeah. See, I'm the better guy.
See, and this is like this. I mean, this shouldn't be a part of the podcast, but because I liked the first one so much, I know we're like talking a ton of shit about it, but like I did love it. And because of that, I am watching Oceans 12 and 13 this week. Like I have set time aside to make that happen for me in my life because I'm really excited. Because from what I understand, Julia Roberts also plays a bigger part. I don't think in the next one, but in Oceans 13, she's in
Oceans 12.
Maybe it's Oceans 12 where she plays a bigger part.
In my research, it was like Julia Roberts was like pissed off because her outfits weren't as cool as Catherine Zeta-Jones, and then like there was also
Catherine Zeta-Jones is in it?
Yeah. And they were supposed to, both of those women were originally supposed to be in 13, but then they were like, you know what? There's just too much. We got to cut them. So there's no fucking women in 13, right? Because like they were like, you know what? We couldn't do them any justice with like characters and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but you have 11 fucking people. Like, and like, I don't know. I haven't seen it in a long time, but reading that, I was just like,
so going back to Ocean's 11 with the way that they treat, like, obviously women are objects, but like also if we're looking at the way, like, who are the non-white, non-male folks in this? It's Yen. It's, oi, bruv, what's his name? Fuck. I do want to get into his accent in a little bit, but his accent was so bad. Okay.
It was bad, and he knows
oi, bruv, crikey. Like, oh my God, go away. And then he's just like, crikey, you should turn left here. Oh, and you're like, what is happening? I don't know what is happening. Okay, Don Cheadle. Thank you, Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle, yeah.
So Don Cheadle is in the background the whole time. He's like never in the casino. He's always at the van. They only need him to get the big machine science bomb that'll cut the power. And that's his only role, essentially. And then to drive the getaway car that's like, he's the tech guy, but he's also tech guy in the background who that's all he does for the most part. And at that point, they have two of them. There's the other guy who broke in and got the computer stuff and like left his little computer calculator thing. Sweaty.
And there's the card dealer.
Yeah. So him being there, it's really like, it doesn't really make any sense in the way that he's there. I'm like, this is kind of gross and silly. But then Yen, the character Yen, when they go to find him or recruit him rather, they make that joke, big air quotes joke, about how he's a part of this Chinese acrobat team and they're at the show watching it happen. And he's like, which one's Yen? And he's like, he's the little Chinese guy. And then they both look at each other as if to imply that all Chinese people look the same. Or rather, all Asian people look the same because, let's face it, Western society does not delineate between Asian countries. That's just not a thing that arrogant pieces of shit do. Or care to learn or do. And so that to me, I was just like, this makes no sense. Like, I mean, I get it. You guys are scummy, but then it's like that bad moment of like racism. But then like 2 scenes later when they're at the house having this meeting, the same guy who made the joke about all Asian people looking the same, when Yen speaks up and says, what are we going to do to get out? We're just going to dig a tunnel. He's speaking Chinese, and Brad Pitt immediately responds with, no, we're actually going to just walk out the front door. So he understood it perfectly. He is fluent in the language. Why in this moment are we breezing right past it? We're not using racism as a crutch for humor because shut up. That's dumb or that's silly. But in this other scene, we're like so on board for it. It makes no sense. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. It really doesn't because like if you think about it, like so like you said in that moment, like they don't subtitle that moment, which I thought was really cool. I was like, oh, cool. Like, and I really do like it when like we don't get those subtitles, right? And I'm like, oh, cool. Like they're kind of building hit like, okay, cool. That's like, and then later on, because Brad Pitt isn't there when he speaks, you know, he's trying to say something and everybody's like, huh? Then it's a comedic beat again at his expense. Yeah. And so they chose to give him that moment and then take it away.
Yeah, but that's what's so weird to me because like, are you establishing Brad Pitt as a good guy, but like he's also racist, but he's also like cultured and like what? Because they're obviously outliering Brad Pitt as the one who understands Yen. So in this moment later, when they're like, we don't get what he says, let's move past it because he's not a person. Brad Pitt's not there to like jump in or translate or what. It's just that you're going from bad to cool to bad of the same kind of like tropish stereotypical humor. And I just don't understand the need or the, like, if we're just looking at it from a purely textual perspective, like from a story perspective, that makes no sense. Either you're establishing these people as bad racists or like, and I get we all contain multitudes. Oh, what's up, multitudiverse? I get we all contain multitudes. However, it just doesn't really make sense. Like, I thought that the scene of Brad Pitt saying that is like, cool, we've moved past racism to get to our goal. Like, let's do this. But then they go right back to it. I'm like, this is foolish. This is very silly.
Yeah, the writing was a bit sloppy for all that stuff. Like, they spent so much time thinking about how they were going to do the heist, which, okay, last note about women in this whole thing. But rather than just filling the empty money bags with, like, I don't know, anything else, paper or newspaper, they fill it with those ads for women.
For sex workers, yeah.
Like, for sex workers, yeah. So it's just like, oh, ha, 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 ha. Like, I like, okay, cool, whatever. It's Vegas. I get it. But, like, also, with their treatment of sex workers in this, it really bugged the fuck out of me.
Oh, for sure. See, to me, that, I guess I didn't really see the paper as, like, a representation of women. Because, I mean, already, they're not treating women like people. They're treating them like objects in this movie. They don't matter. We've established that in this world, in this narrative, women don't really matter. So for me, seeing these sort of like ads, these like handbills for sex work, I didn't really see that as like another way that they're treating women poorly, only because of how littered the streets of Vegas are with those. Like, I mean, I think that I was a kid the first time I went to Vegas, but one thing I distinctly remember that first time, which was in like 2004, maybe 2003, was looking down on the ground. I could almost hardly see the sidewalk because that's all that's on the ground. So to me, that was more of just like set dressing for the idea of Vegas. But to your point about its treatment of women, yeah, that's just another way to be like, let's subtextually kill women.
Yeah, but the point being that women, sex workers, are interchangeable with money, an object, whatever. But yeah, so that's literally all I have to say about women in this movie. So now we can talk about all the other stuff.
No.
Because there is some really cool stuff, but that was just, I think I had just such a hard time getting past any of that in this that I was just kind of like, all right. Like,
great, cool. No, and I absolutely get it. I think being a cis male person, there's a lot that like, especially because I don't experience, I've never experienced what it's like to be female or female presenting in this world. So for me, like as a male viewer, I'm kind of watching it. And obviously, like the more critical I am of film and the more times we do this podcast, I'm like, oh, that's actually really bad and that's gross. If I would have saw this like 5 years ago, I'd have been like, this is the best movie ever. Whatever. And then it's like, it's just, I would have done that so stereotypical like male thing. Like, what do you mean Julia Roberts is in it? She's great. You know what I mean? Like so uncritical, so silly. So silly. It obviously treats this women terribly, but like story-wise, heist-wise, double cross wise, I absolutely loved it. Okay, going back to the first scene with the poker. It's not the first scene. You are absolutely right. It's the first thing I remembered, though. I don't know why. Those big air quotes stars, how funny was that? Like, what a weird little time capsule of fame at the turn of the millennia, right? Like, Topher Grace, which, cool. Also, Shane West from A Walk to Remember.
Oh, shit. I forgot about
Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to bring this up because what an absolute, like, goofy thing. Do you remember when he played Darby Crash in that movie about the germs, What We Do Is Secret? Do you remember this? He did a movie called What We Do Is Secret about the germs. It was a biopic about Darby Crash. Was not very good. But in a publicity stunt for the movie that year on Warped Tour, I think it was like 2007, 2008, they had like the old school stage, whatever that was, where they had like Agent Orange and the Dickies and like, wow, like, so.
Always there.
Yeah, right. That year, the Germs played. And by that, I mean everybody from the Germs played except Darby because he's dead. And Shane West performed as Darby Crash and played him. It wasn't like, and Shane West is the new singer. It was Shane West acting as Darby Crash while the Germs play the Germs songs in the background. So he's like climbing on shit like
Sublime with. It wasn't like Sublime with Rome.
No,
it was it was like Sublime came back and they didn't even talk about the.
And it was somebody dressed up like Bradley Noel, I think is his name. Somebody dressed up like him. It was the strangest experience because I remember me and my friends were like, isn't that Shane West from A Walk to Remember? And he's just like has his shirt off, like pretending to cut himself with glass, being like, ow, ow, ow. And I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't like this.
He was determined not to get typecast. He was like, what is the wildest thing that I can do right now? I'm so glad that you were there for that. Like, so I could vicariously live through you because I would not have wanted to see that.
It was one of the strangest times. My friend, because like, I mean, we like the Germs. We were big fans. And so like being like, oh, how are they going to do this? And then realizing who was front. Because of like, we assumed that they would get another singer and it would just be them with a new singer. But the fact that it was a performance and just kind of like a PR for the film because it came out the same year. Bad. Anyways, we're talking about a different thing. Shane West, everybody. He was in the poker scene and it was very strange. Yeah, that was whatever. I really love the double cross switch 'em ups. I love whenever I'm just like, and again, not trying to like find out where the twist is going to happen. I was just so here for like when he called the cops and he's like, 911, what's your emergency? And it's like, oh no, he's not playing by the rules. He called the cops. The money's going to blow up. What? But then later they're like, they redirect his call, and it's like, what's his name being like, 911, what's your emergency? Like, they were the cops the whole time. And then it's like, that's a recorded video clip. That's not tonight. He's like, they set up a stage. Boom, boom, boom. And then they're already in the SWAT car on the way out. And it's just like, here they go. And then everyone else is like at the fake car, self-driving car with all the fake money. I was just like, yes. And then also, when we see earlier that there's like a pine, I'm okay. This is something, and I'm just rambling. I don't know if I've had too much caffeine. Maybe I have. Who knows? Whatever. It's August. There's like the whole, and I'm sure they like, I didn't go to NYU, so I don't know about film school, everybody, but there's like a clip where they do like a little rack focus of like, in the background, they're like getting the van ready in their like headquarters, whatever. It focuses to a little pine tree in the foreground. It's like center frame for a brief moment. And I'm like, I wonder when that's going to come back in. And then later, when they're getting in the SWAT car and it's their SWAT car, it's the pine freshener from the SWAT car. I bet they taught that in film school. Cowards.
I'm sure they did.
I don't know. That was one of those dumb moments where I was like, that was cute. I mean, it was very like, whatever, very silly, very singular, very like, that, but was it effective for me as a viewer? Yes. I was a sucker for that little moment of filmmaking or whatever. I don't know. This is so silly.
Were you also that way when he showed up to the casino in the same outfit that he got out of prison in?
Oh, yeah. See, that to me, like, that is more of like a character choice, and I don't like him, so I'm kind of like, oh, you like, you jerk. Like, really? You're going to put on your jail tux to go win your ex-wife? Like, go to sleep. Like, that to me, I don't like him. So like, to me, anything he does in the movie, I'm kind of just like, whatever. But then when the heist gets pulled off, I'm like, yes, teamwork. Even though I don't really like most of you. Teamwork. We love when a plan comes together. Is that Pirates of the Caribbean? Jesus, I don't know what I'm quoting anymore. We love it when a good plan comes together. It was in a trailer of something. We love it when a good plan comes together. What is that?
I don't remember. I feel like that's been said like 84,000 times, so you could probably just pick a movie and you'd be right.
Every major studio film screenwriter is just like, oh, here's my arsenal of things I can say. I will fully say, though, I think I love heist movies. Like, just as a genre, I think I absolutely love heist movies. Like, it could be bad. It can be really bad. And you'll still have me. Like, as a viewer, I will absolutely eat up whatever silly twist and turn you throw at me in a heist movie.
I'm so glad that you feel that way. I'm not that way, but I think I might be that way. Like, I know there's certain genres, like the only one that comes to mind, and I'm not even sure if it's true, is Knives Out, because I just watched it finally. And like that whole time I was like, fuck yeah, it was there. And like, I grew up on like murder mysteries with like my grandma and stuff. So that movie was fucking amazing if you haven't seen it. But yeah, I'm a sucker. I don't know. Maybe I need to watch more whodunits. I'm definitely a sucker for sci-fi, but I might also be a sucker for whodunits. One of the things that I did think was charming about this is that everybody fucks up at one point or another. Like, and even the big night, like, everybody has something go wrong, right?
Yeah.
But because they all kind of fail in these small ways, like, they all kind of work out because they're all just like that half step behind. I like that, like, they all, there wasn't really a lot of room for character depth aside from Danny Ocean, who's just like a monster. But like, I thought it was okay. Like, it was just charming that they all kind of failed and sucked at like one point or another. I might have liked this better if I was drinking.
Yeah, right. Like, if you were a little inebriated, you're like, oh, dang, like, this is sick. Yeah, I get that. I think, yeah, you're totally right. If you turn your brain down a couple notches and watch this, it's like, oh, it's great. Like, it's just let this plot wash over you without much like critique. It's good. So like, I tried to do a little bit of both when watching it, which may be why, I don't know. I just like heists. I love heist movies. Love it. Like, I guess I hadn't really thought of structurally the fact that each one of them in a very particular way messes up, but that mistake kind of just adds to the succession of the plan. It adds to like them achieving their goal. Like, Matt Damon having the talk out on the floor and him being like, we need to go back, and like the whole Bernie Mac scene, which I also want to get into. You're talking about using sort of assumptive social pretext as a means for
You are so
thievery.
much more eloquent than I am. You are so much more eloquent. I'm like, they're ridiculous. And you're just like, well.
but like in the scene with the casino owner in the room with Bernie Mac and Matt Damon, they're using the assumption that this white person is going to be racist to their advantage to have the moment of like fake fight, fake aggression, boom, grab the whatever out of his coat because he's like the pickpocket, which is great because they do this in the next one in a way that I think is really interesting, and I like more so than the way they did it in this one. I mean, we'll obviously get into it, but they do a lot of that sort of social assumption deception stuff where it's like, you expect this to be the case, we're going to use that to our advantage to get what we want, and maybe play into certain tropes that we wouldn't have necessarily exhibited, but we're going to for the sake of a plan to kind of perform these things in front of you to deceive you, which I love. I loved it.
Yeah, and I think we'll get into it. I mean, we obviously will, but I think in this, it was just kind of a blanket, like, here it is. But I think the Ocean's 8 was more intentional with who was being taken advantage of and what they represented and which part of society or femininity that they were excluded or like, you know, the gatekeepers of. So we'll get into that. So I think that those are very intentional choices in Ocean's 8.
Yeah.
So also, like, one of the things that I was also a little bit confused by is everybody's saying that Tony Bennett is a bad guy, but we don't ever see him do anything bad. In fact, we see him taking care of his girlfriend or like talking to her like, oh, well, you know, like we can't kiss right now because we're on camera. So like, yeah, that's super smart. You shouldn't like, you know, like kiss your employees in front of everybody or the cameras or whatever. Right. But like the only thing we see him do is like maybe threaten people once in a while. But like most of the time we see him, he's just like, Danny Ocean. You know, or like, you know, just kind of existing or reassuring his customer, like, this is a movie where we're shown, or we're not shown what he does. We're like, maybe like, oh, well, he has some questionable dealings because he's going to let this dude put this thing in this vault. But like, for the most part, it's everybody else being like, oh, that guy, I fucking hate that guy. Let's steal from him. Or like, that guy, blah, blah, blah. He did this to this. He does this to everybody's family. He does this to, and like, I didn't really buy him as that kind of bad guy because we never, he didn't seem very menacing to me. He just seemed more annoyed. Like, he seemed like he would just be like, really?
Yeah. Oh, and the annoyance is expected. I mean, I assume like, I'd be a little like, hey, what's going on? Like, everybody. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance. Well, not even nuance. There's just a lot of exposition around talking about his character, but there's never actually any sort of exhibition of that. Like, we as a viewer don't see these bad things about him. Like, he's rigid. Like, don't get on his bad side. He'll do something bad. And we're like, show us the bad thing. And it's like, nope, we're going to tell you. Like, but what bad thing is he doing? Well, he's very strong and powerful. Okay, great. We see that. What? So he's bad? Is that why George Clooney's here? Yeah, he's really bad. What did he do? Well, he's bad. And you're like, okay. I guess he's bad. He's a bad guy. So root George Clooney. Let's go.
He just,
you know?
Yeah, he just kind of seemed like he was there. Like he just like had like a little bit of a mean pouty face sometimes, and that's kind of his whole character. And it's not like you just like look up and you're like, oh, this guy is gonna fuck me up and my whole family for like being a fly on the wall over here. Like it wasn't anything like that. So I was like, it was just like, he's a bad guy, okay, she's his ex-wife, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like kind of let's say that, you know. I will fully say I'm not trying to get around the fact that like fuck him, eat the rich, like completely, like he sucks.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
Like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, they're not really showing us any bad thing. They're just telling us he's bad. So it's very much just like, I guess we gotta believe Ocean because whatever reason.
It is kind of funny that like there is the line in this movie about like, don't worry, rich people have insurance. They'll get it back. It's okay. And then one of the main characters in Ocean's 8 is an insurance agent, I'm very excited about.
I like that.
They did all these little subtle tie-ins that were just like so beautiful.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I am cool. I am excited to talk about Ocean's 8 now that we talked about
Can we talk about it now?
Let's do it. Yeah. I'm down.
Okay.
After getting released from prison, cool gal Denise Ocean heads to New York with a plan to steal the Toussaint necklace from the Met Gala. She meets up with her partner Lou, and together they assemble the best of the best women in fraudulence and thievery. But wait, is this really just an elaborate plan to get back at her ex, Claude Becker, that conned her and got her thrown in jail? Or is he just the fall guy? I don't know.
They prepare, they steal the thing, they chop up the thing, then they look good, and they get paid. But wait, there's an insurance detective, and Claude goes to jail. Daphne Kluger was in on it, and you thought this movie was about one necklace. There's a whole fridge full. How many, you ask? At least 8, because it's Ocean's 8.
There were
Ocean's 8.
8 of them. I don't know if there were actually 8 necklaces, but it worked with our little intro, so... There's going to be 8 necklaces. We know that there were
at least 8 of them.
At least 8.
Right?
Okay.
And
yes.
So we were still technically correct.
We were still technically correct. That is true.
I love this movie. I had so much fun with this movie. That's all I have to say.
Seeing it in theaters, when we first saw it in theaters, Eric and I went together. I feel like I say this all the time. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know how many people who listen to this know us, but I've said it before. My boyfriend's name is also Eric. So I feel like sometimes when I say that, it's like me talking in the third person, like, oh yeah, Eric and I went.
You took yourself on a date?
Yeah, no, it's like my boyfriend and I, Eric, went to the movies together. But I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it seeing it in the theaters, and then again, subsequently seeing it at home. And I am more critical now having seen it the third time. But generally, I still like it. I still think it's a cool movie. I still think it's a good movie. Also, Rihanna is the best part of this movie.
Her fucking mouse with the 9-ball was so good.
Rihanna
was great.
The coolest. She's also like, there are certain levels of like believability and character work. I do want to get to Awkwafina before I get to Rihanna, only in the fact that there are some moments of Awkwafina's character that is just purely performative blackness that I feel like I didn't really enjoy.
I'm not sure about that because that is just kind of who Awkwafina is. She did grow up in like Queens and all this other stuff, so I think I don't know. See, that's the thing is like it's a little bit tricky, and I'm saying I think generally Awkwafina herself, there's a level of performativeness. Because she's also in like hip hop, in the hip hop world and stuff like that too. So then how much of that is hip hop culture and how much of that is...
Yeah, because that's not to say that hip hop is exclusively black, but there's a level of inauthenticity to the way that she performs that is a little bit off-putting. But apart from that, I think Awkwafina is cool. But seeing her perform in this movie and then seeing Rihanna respond, like Rihanna's acting kind of ran circles around Awkwafina in a way that really highlighted to me just another level. Like, I feel like with Awkwafina, it is more of a stylized, cartoonish character than Rihanna's. Because like when Rihanna, what does she say? Oh, when they're trying to figure out the magnetic mechanic to get the necklace open, 9-Ball is Rihanna's character's name. Her little sister, she calls her. And she's like, hey, this is our problem. This is what we need to get fixed. Do you have an idea? And she's like, let me think about it. Then she's on the subway and she's like, yeah, fuck it. It's super easy. I can make a mechanism to do it. She's like, perfect. Love you. Thank you. Hangs up. And then I think Cate Blanchett turns to her and she's like, so you just solved it? She's like, did you really just ask me that? Like, it's one of these things where it's like, there's not any other, because each one of these people is a specialist in the thing that they do. So why are we only questioning the black character's skill set? Like Cate Blanchett just saw this whole transaction go down where her sister figured it out and everyone's like, yeah, but why is she now questioning whether or not that happened? You know what I mean? She's only questioning her skill set. And then even later, Sandra Bullock asks a similar question when they meet at the park and then they get in the van. Sandra Bullock's like, what do your parents do? And Rihanna doesn't even recognize it with a response. She just gives her the dirtiest look, and then they get in the van. Because they're not really asking the same questions of any other character but Rihanna.
I agree with you with that comment about the parents, for sure, because she's the only character that does get asked that. But with regards to the first time, I think that was more of a question of, because what she deals with is technology, like I felt like that was more of like a, wait, really? Or like also because they saw the sister, and the sister was much younger too. And like, yeah, she didn't need to be questioned, but also like they're stealing from the fucking Met Gala. So I think because if her character didn't rely on technology, I think that would have been a bit different. But I don't know. I honestly, truly, I wanted more of Rihanna and Mindy Kaling and Awkwafina and, you know, all of the characters that were kind of comprising the team, because at the end of the day, this film is still about 3 white women, right?
Yeah. Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
They are truly the stars, and everybody else is just kind of there. So like, I mean, they're not kind of there. I feel like each of the characters at least had more depth to them than the other one we watched, Ocean's 11. I loved Mindy Kaling and Awkwafina showing her how to do Tinder, you know. I loved Awkwafina like straight up being like, can I get a Metro card? And she's like, you don't have a Metro card? What are you, a tourist? I liked how they got to roast them just a little bit, and also like the ways in which they bonded. And yeah, I think for me, I wanted more of them. If I could have anything changed in this movie, it would be more of them.
I agree. Yeah, that was something that I wanted too. I enjoyed, so in the way that this movie had more character building than the last, I 100% agree with you. I think, okay, so this, I do want to just rebut the one thing, it's just the questioning of like, did you really just say that, making that response? Because to me, it's like, this is literally the best of the best. If you're trusting who you're getting, you've already chosen, the heist is already in process. We've established that like, these are the best people at what they do. So in that moment, even in a high stress situation, I think there's a level of just like, she's just not trusting her because her and her sister are capable, autonomous, intelligent Black women. And she's questioning her on that reason alone, because we're already on the base level assumption that these are the best people. So for her to then double down on like, are you sure you're the best? Are you sure? Like, why do you keep asking me, are you sure? Like, why? You know what I mean?
Thinking back on it, when like Nine Ball is first introduced, she's like, wait, but what's your real name? Wait, but what's your real name?
And she then keeps doing that bullshit. Yeah.
And also being like, are you sure she's the best? Like, so maybe not to her face. Ooh. So yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm going to retract my statement on that.
And it's, and it, only to me, it's like, because those were the small shades. And again, generally, I liked everybody in this movie. There wasn't really anything about any of them that I was kind of like, ugh, about. Kate Blanchett, I liked the least. And it was because of that moment. And then like, there was a couple other things where I'm like, I don't necessarily like your character that much. But again, it's nuanced. Generally, all the characters I thought were great and unique and nuanced and cool. But yeah, what was I going to say? Oh, when we're talking about subverting the expectation of like social performance in the way that the last one not really dealt with, but like performed racism to get what they wanted with Matt Damon and Bernie Mac. This one, throughout the entire movie, there is this sort of, because obviously it's like the female reboot of this. It's supposed to be the femme one. It's supposed to be like all things girly. So like in these small moments of like Tinder and whatever, I like that we're performing it and making it a movie that is more femme than mask in this way. But the movie does a really good job at like, even though these are all women, there is still some performed misogyny that has just been taught. Like with Kluger, they all assumed that she was this dumb woman and all this stuff, but she like subverts that expectation. She's like, I know what you guys were doing. You guys thought I'm dumb. Like, no. And you know what I mean? Like that
yeah,
cross.
I thought that was one of the best parts of the film, I thought.
Yeah,
because,
it was well
like,
done. I loved it.
Because like that's something that we get so often when there's more than one woman on screen at the same time, is it's usually like they're at odds or whatever. And so like in this, it was directed a lot on, and a lot of this was writing on Kluger on Anne Hathaway not getting it and just kind of being like, you know, a ditzy star that's like really self-absorbed and everything. And the way that her character is written is just it's kind of like dripping that like self-absorption and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And so the whole time you're like, all right, cool, she sucks and this dude sucks. And then at the end, it's like, no, I knew it was happening and I was cool with this. And she knowingly like planted the evidence on the dude and she still like screwed him. She's still like, yeah, whatever. So because a lot of the time too, like female confidence is portrayed as bad or as negative or a negative trait to have, right?
Yeah.
And so she was so confident that it was off-putting, right? Or is supposed to feel off-putting. And at the end, like when we see her just fully embrace all of that and knowing now who she is, it's just so interesting how that suddenly becomes okay and empowering when they're suddenly on the right side or when we know the motivation behind what they're doing. So I think that that's another bigger conversation. But one of the things I loved especially too was that she did all of that, not because she needed money, not because of anything, but because of female friendship, because that is something that as a woman is really hard to find. You know, and when you find it, you try not to let go. And so I liked that they addressed, like, it felt like they were saying, like, more women need to be friends. Like, so I liked that was her whole motivation, and it wasn't a dude, and it wasn't this. It was just like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll bone him, whatever. Let's hang out. Can we hang out? Is that cool?
Yeah. I think, like, that whole thing, to me, it didn't even really feel like the motivation for her was necessary. Like, in the end, it worked out because she ended up, like, meeting all these women and, like, ultimately, there was kind of this discussion about female friendship, how she hasn't really had any friends. But I think initially, I loved it because it felt like she wasn't doing it to like meet people. She was just like, oh, they're up to something and I want in. Like, it was just a general adventurous curiosity. Because like, even watching it this time, the scene, like the moment in the narrative where Kluger, Anne Hathaway, when she realizes that it's a heist, that they're going to steal the diamonds, it's when she has the guard put the necklace back on her just so she can record the magnetic lock on the back. And when she sends the video to headquarters and they're reviewing it, if you look in the background, you can see Anne Hathaway looking in the mirror at the phone. Mm-hmm. And then they just kind of pan away from it real quick. And so I like that because I'm like, oh, this isn't just some sort of like hindsight thing. Like there's evidence at the beginning of the movie that shows clearly, oh, look, she's looking at the phone. She's acknowledging this. Love it. So to me, I was like, knowing that was coming, I was like, ooh, yes, I love that.
Well, and it's also really cool too, because like, that's a really great example of how they build, how they show you what they're going to be using for the real heist, you know?
Yeah.
So like when you go back and you put everything together, it's like, wait, she hoards a bunch of toys, or they bought toys. Okay, so the toys.
She bought the toy submarine.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. And then they do a lot of scenes in that room with all of the jewels, right? And there's just so much kind of like foreshadowing, so much, so many little details like that, where when it's all coming together, it's not just, oh shit, really? That happened? Oh my God, that's so cool. It's, oh, what? Like, it's kind of like taken to this whole other level because you've seen all of this, because like, wow, okay, this is really smart, because like the fake heist happens, right? Where like, oh, she had to go barf in the bathroom, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then Mindy Kaling like goes in the bathroom and uses a fucking diaper changer to like do all that. And I was like, holy shit, that's so amazing. That I lost my shit at that, right? And also because of course nobody else is going to be using that because it's a diaper changing thing and because that's women's work or whatever, right? So anyways, so like with that, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, that's cool. And then once the real heist is revealed, I was like, I don't know. It just like blew my mind because there was so much that was there, and so much that was, it felt more earned. It didn't feel just like, oh yeah, and like this is what actually happened. Like they laid that groundwork in such subtle ways that like it felt so rewarding to me.
100%, because when I saw it in theaters, I felt the same way. I'm like, what? It's a triple heist? That's crazy. Like, not only did she know and she came back, but then it's like, not just the one necklace, it's 30 million for everybody. Like, here's all the necklaces. Like, love it, love it, love it. For some reason, watching it after Ocean's 11, that turn felt less earned this time. And I don't know.
Oh, I disagree 1,000%.
I don't know, and I don't know why. Because to me, like, so if we're equating, like, story-wise, they're pretty similar. Like, the whole idea that, like, each one of them was only doing it in a sort of for a personal reason to sort of get back at a lover that wronged them, or to get the lover back or whatever. So there's that scene of, like, you're doing this just for them, and it's like, not just for them, but whatever. Like, it had a lot of similarities. And so the two key instances to set up that, like, last turn, that last gotcha, one's the pine tree from the SWAT car, the other is the toy submarine that Cate Blanchett buys. For some reason, and I'm not sure why, the pine tree worked better for me. Just as, like, a more, because to me, in Ocean's 11, and this is just a purely, like, this is obviously purely opinion based and has nothing to do with the content of, like, character or anything. In Ocean's 11, that rack focus of, like, they're in the space doing something, and then we just get a glimpse of this other thing that's already in the space, and then you're like, I wonder what that is. Next scene. Whereas in this one, she just goes to a toy store and buys a submarine. Like, that toy store never comes back into play. It's just like, oh, why is she in a toy store? Why'd she buy that? We'll find out later. Whereas this other totem, this other visual trigger for the last turn is, like, already in the space. It's not, there's not like a, you don't have to go out of your way to find that thing to then, because not to say that it wasn't good. Looking at them from, like, because they do feel like remakes, obviously everything about them is different, but generally heist movies are all pretty much the same movie. Generally it's, like, a lot of the same sort of, like, hijinks and twist. So if I'm looking at it purely on the comparing the two in this regard, I don't know why Ocean's 8 didn't hit me as hard as it did the first two times I saw it.
It hit me so hard for this because, to me, okay, if we're comparing those totems, the pine tree was boring for me because it's like, oh, cool, they got a car. Whatever. They have a car. There's cars everywhere. They have, like, they've got a getaway vehicle. Sure. But what the submarine represented to me was female ingenuity, because, like, you would never have expected them to use a fucking toy submarine to take the jewels underneath all of the, like, laser beams and all of this stuff, right? So to me, that was, and the same way that they use the selfie stick, and the same way that they use all of these other things, right? They were smart and also so much more discreet. Like, people are going to look for that fucking SWAT car. They're going to find that, like, all I could think of when they, like, drove it into the thing, I was like, that's going to be found. Like, also, they all have to go back there and get their own share of the money. That's so, like, that's silly. And then with this, it was just like, that could be, like, tossed in the trash, or that could be smashed that could be put in a fucking purse. That is such a small thing, and that is the key to making this happen.
I completely agree with you. The representation of the submarine, it being a child's toy, something you wouldn't expect to be this thing. Also, the way that everybody generally does not expect women to be successful, to be intelligent, to be this thing. Because of generalized misogyny and the patriarchy, there is this under assumption of the capabilities of femme-presenting people. So 100% on the submarine being that. I loved the submarine as it was used. To me, the structural setup was wrong. And I thought about it. What would have worked better to me? And again, this is just whatever. We're talking, this is so silly. But what would have worked better? When she's in what's her name's garage and she has all of those, like, multiples of blenders and this and that. And she's like, how do you explain this to your husband? Like, eBay. Like, there's this whole thing. So you're establishing that she's, like, a reseller, or, like, that's her scam. Why not have a section in the garage that are that toy submarine and have Sandra Bullock just swipe it on her way out? Because,
well, I think it had to do with the character building between Lou and Debbie, because that was also the part that was Lou's part. Like, Lou is kind of, like, outside of all of this, and then she shows up with one from the first one, right? And so then it's like, all right, cool. he's back, and then they do the thing while everybody else is off busy and doing their thing. So like, I think that was a way to empower Lou, because she's also the one that helps set up the entire thing, even Kruger and even this. Like, her and Debbie are the only people that know everything and know what's going on, because what's her name? Mom lady with the eBay garage was like, wait, what? We didn't, like, how are we going to get the money? And then she's like, oh shit. Like, so I think, whatever.
Yeah, so she was like in on it still. You know what I mean? So there's a couple things that like generally worked, but watching it this other time, I'm like, just her going to the toy store for no reason and buying that, I was like, this could have been, it was good and it worked and it was effective. But to me, it just felt like that moment, that scene could have been a part of another scene and it would have been more seamless. And then I would have been like, she took the submarine from the garage.
Okay, sure.
Because it was
also,
more,
like, we might be getting a little bit nitpicky because, like,
without a
then
doubt,
it's like this film has to be like, because I think there's a lot of care that went into this film, and
yes.
I think that's true of, and I was thinking about this earlier, that's true of any female remake or reboot or whatever you want to say, right? They have to get everything right. They have to have tie-ins from the first ones. They have to have the right dialogue. They have to have the callbacks. They have to be extremely well written and extremely well cast. And our expectations of women so often have to be flawless in order to be good, you know? And it's not enough to just like, where Ocean's 12 is fucking messy. Julia Roberts is playing herself and she's pregnant and it's a whole thing where like that would slide in Ocean's 11, but that would absolutely not slide in Ocean's 8. So I think that, yeah, I mean, that part could have been done better. But to me, I didn't even think about that because, like, there was just so much groundwork that they had laid where Ocean's 11 didn't work for that ending. They didn't really, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, and then you thought, and then you thought, and then you thought. Whereas this one was actually littering that throughout the whole thing and trying to make sure that each person had their part. And it wasn't just to, like, be a decoy or like, you know, or like the twins where the whole thing that they do is just like fight, you know, like,
so
it's, like, I don't know. And this film was extremely conscious about how women are viewed like that and how they have to have perfection and stuff like that. And like, you know, several times within the film, like it even says like men can't be trusted. There's like the moment where they were like, no, I want an all women team. No dudes, no he's here. And, you know, because you see like literally every man in this until we get the inspector is a douchebag or is locking away a part of femininity or blocking their access to something, you know? So like the necklace is held captive by these little Frenchmen and they're just kind of like, you know, like, no, you can't see the necklace. This is our necklace. And they're like, okay, you know, and it feels to me like this was that was very cognizant of all of that. And like, even like from like once they pull off the heist, they're sitting in the place, like, instead of like doing nails or whatever, they're eating pizza and drinking beer, you know, or they're see, like.
That to me was almost a little too like, see, we're cool. We're not like other girls, which I think is just as destructive as something that would be as femme as like doing nails. I only say that because I do think I love this movie and I love the character, but like they do make the comment about like an all female team. Then why is Yen there? Because really, he's the one who gets the jewels. They're just keeping guard, and she's running the submarine, which, again, it's a cool plan, and I'm on board. I'm loving the visuals. But at the same time, why not, when they get to the trampoline, or the trapeze place, it's his business, I'm assuming he's an instructor, or he runs it. Why not, in that moment, then, what if he just, like, pointed to his left, and it was, like, his daughter, or his wife, or somebody? Because then you're establishing, like, he's still in thievery and deception. He's still a part of this, and there's sort of like my kids are also involved in it in the same way. Like so you're still establishing this character in the family of like all of these things. I just didn't like that. Like, and I love that he had a cameo in it briefly, but I think his cameo should have been limited to him at the trapeze place, and then he's like, here's my wife or my daughter or some other female presenting person to be just as good, if not better than him in that moment, to come in
because they
and
made
be
that
the one
comment earlier. Yeah. I agree.
Because I made the comment earlier.
Yeah.
So when he was there watching it this time too, because the first 2 times I was just like, oh, hell yeah. And I also had never seen Ocean's 11. So I was like, I don't know who he is, but we're on board. He fucking rips. I love this. But watching it this time, I was like, oh, then why say like an all-female team and then have him come in? That I'm like, you know what I mean? When it could have just been. So there's small moments like that. Again, I want to say generally, I really like this movie. I think it's a great movie. I love the turns. I love the twists. And the same can be said. So like, I remembered watching it this time and kind of being a little bit bummed that a lot of the moments relied on technology in a way that the last one didn't, where like they're like scanning the thing and like the glasses are like super high tech. I'm on board with high tech. But then thinking about it, I'm also just like, well, look at the first one. What the fuck was that dumb sci-fi bomb? Like, that's also a bit of really garbage, super silly technology where it's like, really? This Riddler looking contraption is going to turn off all of the power on the strip? Like, what? Does that
also,
even, you know what I mean?
If you try to make a heist movie now, like, without using any sort of technology, I think that
there's also that.
Then it's going to be like, what the fuck, like that. So like, then I was super fine with it. And I was like, dude, that's super smart. Make that blind spot. Cool.
Yeah.
Like they clearly were smart and worked for it. I want to go back to the moment where you were talking about how the pizza beer scene was harmful. I don't think it was harmful because I feel like they were just like, to me, it wasn't like they're like not being like, and we're not girly girls or whatever. Because like they literally walked out of the Met Gala in these gorgeous dresses and all of this. But I think it was a cool moment to be like, cool. Also, they stole millions of dollars worth of diamonds. And now they're just kind of sitting on the couch eating pizza and drinking beer. I thought that was great.
I did enjoy it. I was only saying that as a response because it's like, instead of doing the expected thing, they did the unexpected thing. But I don't think that was the unexpected thing, only because we did see these moments of femininity, of glam, of expected feminists, of what. And again, this movie the whole time is trying to subvert the expectation by using the male gaze as a weapon to get the things that they need in any situation. So you're seeing them playing with the expected female, the femme thing, as a means to get what they want, which I appreciate. So I'm only saying in general, my response to that is only because of one line at the beginning that we haven't really talked about. When they walk to the Met Gala, they're talking about how she hatched this plan, and she says, I shared a cell with 4 other girls I couldn't even think. And that to me felt very like misogynist. It felt very like it's, I mean, to me, I'm like, oh, so the guy who wrote this, he wrote that joke. Like he wrote that dialogue, which also I'm just like, then why is he writing? Like, not to be like a complete shit, but like, why is he on the writing team? Why is he writing the screenplay? I know he got a dual credit, Gary Ross and Olivia Milch. So, and maybe he didn't. Maybe she wrote it. Whoever wrote it. To me, I'm just like, for a movie that's like, yes, we're establishing this like very, very femme, very female, like they know what the perceived female expectation is. They're going to use that against society and against men specifically. And I love that. But then to have that line thrown in there, I'm like, wait.
Yeah, I didn't even remember that line.
Yeah, it just made me like,
that's a gross
kind
line.
of. It made me kind of recontextualize things. So in these small moments, and again, I love them like walking down the stairs. That was a really gorgeous silhouette. I love that each one of them repurposes this jewelry in a way that looks cool. So when she's Cate Blanchett standing across the street in her like gorgeous turquoise, blue, green dress, she's wearing a piece of that necklace as sort of like an amulet necklace. So it still looks gorgeous, but she's repurposing this thing that they just stole in a way to show beauty, to show this exquisite look, tying it together. There were just some small moments that kind of like that pizza thing that I didn't really even think about it in its context, but with a line like that early on, I was just kind of like, how much of this is like performative feminism, whereas how much of it is earnest? Yeah,
I think that's fair. And I think it is really weird that line made it in there, and it's making me think
so
about
weird.
What other lines? Because like there were a couple other things that did bother me a little bit. Like the first place that Debbie goes when she gets out of jail is the makeup store, and so it's like, okay, and then she kind of like just like tricks her way into getting like literally everything, which like, cool, all right, do it. But like they do lean into that in certain points, and I'm not quite sure this definitely needs a rewatch. I still really enjoyed it, but
same.
But I think a lot of that is in response because, like, like beauty is political, or like a lot of this is also like, men excluding women from access to certain things or to like certain mobility or things like that. So there's a lot going in there, but I think you're right that like maybe not all of it was very well thought out because like, there were some amazing moments, but then to have certain lines or to have questioning of people of color in the film and things like that, like that does feel a little bit dirty.
It just, it just because again, I think maybe it was those moments, not necessarily watching it in succession with Ocean's 11. It might have just been because I remember that very clearly and being like, why did she say that? What? Like that, based on who you're portraying and who we're seeing now, that seems really out of character, especially with the rest of the movie. So I love the subversion of expectation. That was my favorite part of the writing of this movie with that. And even her going to like the makeup store at the beginning. There's a level of me that read that as like, if we're going all in on this being the female reboot, this being the femme reboot, hell yeah, she's in a makeup store, cool. But then her stealing it is contextualizing or like, I guess, characterizing her, cool, she's an Ocean, she's thievery, she's fraudulence. We know her already based on her family. But also stealing from the makeup industry, which, I mean, generally, there's a bigger conversation about makeup in general, but like kind of isn't great to women. Like the makeup industry at large isn't necessarily the best to women. So stealing from that industry to me felt like a very like quiet, feminist, cool, like, oh yeah, fuck it. Hell yeah.
Exactly.
She's obviously a part of this system because she is femme, but she's also understanding the nuance of a system that keeps women down and is going to take from them in a way that's also shedding light on the character that is an Ocean, right? In the lore of the Oceans, we're seeing, oh, she is that girl. We're seeing that. So there's like, I feel like we can read into that with almost any scene in that way, but just like really, it was like lines like that other one that just like, I'm like, man, how much of this is intentional then? Because like before, I'm like, hell yeah, this is great. Because I didn't think about that diaper changing station. I loved it just as like a secret agent moment with Mindy Kaling, but just the literal representation of what those things were. It's a diaper changing station and a tampon dispenser. She opens both of them. One is the table, one is like her tool set. I didn't see that the first time. You saying that now, I'm like, that is that's cool. Like that's like such a cool. It's not really called out. It's very coy and casual, but a really fun way to like. I just moments like that. I'm like, that's sick. But then again, that line, I'm just like, why did she say that? Like, why did that make it in the movie?
It makes me wonder why. Like, I mean, obviously, you're not going to win all of the battles in the writer room, and I'm sure that was the dude joke, right? So yeah, it does give me a little bit of pause when I'm thinking about this film, but I do generally think that at its heart, it's really good. And so I'd like to think that those are just one-offs and shouldn't have been in there, because when you really look at what each of these characters inhabits, and whether or not they're questioned or whatever, just like who they are, they're all extremely confident in who they are. And we see like little moments of society trying to make them into what they think they're supposed to be, right? And so like we see Mindy Kaling and like one of her customers be like, get a man, right? Or like, and then we see again, so many men be like, oh, you cannot do that. You can't do that, actually. You cannot use this necklace. And we're going to have armed guards with you in order to have this, or in order to borrow this for the night, blah, blah, blah. Showing just a lot of the expectations of women that we put on women. And so like seeing them trying to fight against that or use those expectations to their advantage, and use their sexuality or use their play dumb or do stuff like that in order to like, oh, I need to see this in the light, like those types of things, to where while they're playing dumb or playing like pretending to be this person so many times in so many ways in so many days, like, like these little small subtle ways that you find to get through the day or like, to make things better for yourself or to get what you need. Because if you outright say like, hey, I need to do this, the answer is going to be no, or things like that. So that's kind of how we navigate the world, is kind of like always trying to figure out, how can I do this? How can I survive when everybody's trying to tell you what to do and what not to do and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do? So yeah, I thought that there was some really brilliant writing in this. And yeah, obviously there was some bad writing in this, but I think overall, like especially for a reboot, like, so this isn't necessarily a reboot. It, like we said, it does take place in the same universe, and it does start at Danny Ocean's grave. We don't know. I think that it's implied that he's not dead, but you know, I feel like the acting from everybody was very good. I think we saw a lot of different types of femininity. Like we said, even Anne Hathaway, who's supposed to be overconfident and self-absorbed, is actually still just a person, and you shouldn't think bad of her, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just that kind of stuff. And
I like, as you were saying about like being a woman and just getting told no and not having the same opportunities that male presenting people or men have. I like that in this moment, the crux of the narrative that was her trying to get back at a jilted lover. Whereas in the first one, it was guided by ego-driven ownership of somebody else, right?
Yeah,
whereas
yeah, absolutely.
This one was more of a revenge, but revenge specifically in the realm of this man abused her vulnerability into doing this thing and then threw her under the bus at the turn of a hat. Like, he used her in this way, but got close. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was more of Sandra Bullock's character. Her motive to getting him back felt way more justified than George Clooney's in Ocean's 11. I was way more, because like that whole thing with George Clooney, I was like, this doesn't, like, it doesn't really make sense. And also, he's a bad person. And also, why is he our hero? Like, okay, no thanks. But in this one, it was like, yeah, that guy's a piece of shit. And he continues to be a piece of shit throughout the movie. So yeah, fuck him over. Like, drop that little jewel in his pocket. And then Anne Hathaway going in there and taking the photo. I'm like, yes, fuck him. Like, fuck him completely. Also, get those dogs a new home.
And then even with like the fashion designer, I forget her name, but like, you know, like I liked that each one of these women, even like their weaknesses could also be used as their strengths, right?
Yeah.
So like, she doesn't always know what's happening, and she just will lean the hell into it, and she's fine, you know?
Yeah.
Or she'll like be like, and then when somebody says something, she's like, yes, absolutely, you know? And so like, you know, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be super smart. You don't have to have the entire plan. You could just kind of like be there and rely on other women to help you out and help you get through, you know? So I enjoyed that as well.
I did too. Like that whole scene with, well, because first she meets Dakota Fanning, which I love that Dakota Fanning was just like in it for a second.
Yeah.
Especially since Elle is kind of like, I mean, she's like more of a Fanning than Dakota, which seems so strange to me. You know what I mean? Because Elle's doing so many things, like The Great, which was fantastic. I mean, this is the whole thing, but she was in The Great. It was fantastic. Elle Fanning is incredible. So is Dakota, obviously. But like, it was just cool to see her for as small of a part as she had, just momentarily be in this. I was like, hell yeah. I love Dakota Fanning. That's sick. But the scene after that where Helena Bonham Carter meets with Kluger, Anne Hathaway, and the whole point is to seem disinterested, but she has trouble being disinterested because she's like, she keeps saying, I saw her movie. She's quite good. Like, she's kind of hyping herself up to be like, oh shit, this is like a movie star that I'm meeting.
And then they have the bubble gun outside.
Yep. And then they keep blowing the bubble gun, and then she's like, keeps staring, and it works well. I know that's like a small moment. Like, we just need you to be disinterested. And it's like, she can't. And she's telling, kind of like explaining to them, like, I might be starstruck in not so many words. So the fact that they were like outside to help her through this process to get to the desired goal, I really enjoyed. I liked, and also just them standing really stoically blowing a bubble gun into the window. It was a really fun visual.
Especially because I really did love Lou's character, like just kind of like chill, stoic, like whatever, looks great in a pantsuit. And then like, also, I'm going to make this dude tacos, I guess. Like, you know, like, she's there for it all, but like the moments where you see her like really show how much care and how much love that she has for Debbie, for Sandra Bullock, when she's like, the only time we really see her be emotional is when she's talking about like, this dude fucked you over. Like, he's going to do this to you again. She's so protective of Debbie, you know? And the vibe I got from her was the whole world will burn if they fuck you over again. Like, you know.
Well, I like, because you said off mic earlier that your take of this was that they were together, or that they like had a romantic, not necessarily fling, but there was definitely romantic tension between the two of them, which I didn't read at all. But to me, that would have been a really interesting turn. That would have just been a really interesting another layer of context, or like, I guess to me, like adding to that level of like, you're really doing this just because of him. And like, I mean, obviously some of her anger is coming from the fact that like she could really endanger these other people if the heist goes wrong. But she's also like, fuck him. He's just going to hurt you again. Unlike me, I won't do that to you. Like, let me love you, sort of a thing. That to me would have just like heightened the stakes and adding that romantic layer in a way that I think like, God, that would have been so cool.
That's how I read it, just because like there were these like really little small things that were like, you know, they went to a restaurant and they were eating together off the same plate. And I don't know why, but that's how I read that. And then like the familiarity that they had with each other. And then especially like in those moments and stuff, like be like, he's just going to fuck you over again. And I can't watch that happen to you. And how she was just like she wasn't necessarily yes and, she was like yes and but, right? Like, yeah. Okay, I'm here for you. And like, she really is the backbone of this. And yes, she's like the counterpart to Rusty, right, in Ocean's 11. Yeah. So she's got to have that kind of like cool kind of whatever. But like, I thought that was just so interesting because we so rarely get such a strong female character that's just kind of like disinterested or like cool or that suave or that cool headed, but like also just so like in the ways that they chose to show her strength or her like being a badass and like nothing's beneath her, or like, you know, she does whatever the fuck it takes. Like some dude is like knocking on the window to get a taco or something, and she's like, all right, what the fuck ever, right? Or she's like riding her motorcycle, or she's the one that's actually stealing the diamonds, you know, like, or she keeps all the team together. Like Debbie has the idea, but like Lou is the one that like really just, she makes it come together, you know?
Oh, 100%. She's the glue and Sandra Bullock is the popsicle sticks. Right? For making a little popsicle castle or whatever. But yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. She was great. I wish I had read that the same way you did, because I feel like if it was more overt, I wish that like there was romantic tension. That would have been such a cool element. It would have recontextualized my entire understanding of not just their dynamic, but also the context of the entire heist, essentially. And again, I just want to say for the record, which I haven't said many times, I love heist movies. Like for as much as like I did have some small problems with it, this movie was a pure joy. Like every turn when it's like they're doing the blind spot at the bathroom and it's like, oh, she's going to throw up an Aquafina, just like grabs it off of her neck real quick. And it's just like, boom, slips it on the tray. Tray goes to the thing, the dishes out of the dish, like boom. And you're like, what? And then also her hiring all of those actors to then go resell the diamonds so they don't get caught with it. This all happening.
And deposit that money into Claude or whatever the fuck his name was, his bank account. Like the way in which they set him up to take this fall was well, because it also amazing. I
also like that entire last 30 minutes felt like a epilogue in a way where like they got the diamonds, heist over, and then this whole bit with James Corden as the detective and them like reselling and setting him up and all this stuff. Structurally, I know it's Act 3, but it felt like an epilogue, and because of that, I feel like epilogues are shorter than acts, like generally. So as soon
unless you're Lord of the Rings.
Unless you're Lord of the Rings, yes. So
and then it's like 8 hours.
Then it's like a whole nother book. But because it felt like a shorter window of time to wrap up the story, every time there was another turn, it felt that much more engaging. Whereas if it felt very clearly like the third act, I would have been like, there's a lot more that's going to happen. I'm just waiting for it. But knowing that or not knowing, rather, feeling like it was a shorter amount of time when they were like, resell into the guy's name and Anne Hathaway's actually in it, and there's actually 8 necklaces, and the detective actually knows your Ocean, and you have that conversation. You're like, I can get him for you. Anne Hathaway goes to his house and fucks him, and then stages this whole thing and like bounces, and the cops are there, and like every time it would like return and they would reveal something else, it just felt so much more like, ooh, ah. And again, I'm a sucker for heists. So whenever you show me something new that you're like, ooh, we fooled you, I'm fooled every time, no matter what. I didn't see it coming. And even the most basic thing, it'll be like, we said this at the beginning, it'd be like, oh shit, I don't remember that. This was a trick. Like, because of that whole last sequence, I was like, ooh, yes.
Yeah, I loved this movie. I had as much fun watching this as I had when I was watching Ghostbusters, and I thought it was funnier. I felt like the jokes landed a little bit better, like whereas the other one felt just kind of like a bunch of like dumb playboys, like this one felt like they were all just like people and they were fun and funny.
We'll say it in the conclusion. The first one was very much just for boring straight guys. It was straight guy action porn. That's all it was. Like, there was nothing else. So the little like racist jokes is like, oh, that's so funny because he's telling the truth. Like, what a straight white thing to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's so boring. Like, what a bad joke and a boring take. But to me, the entire context of that movie was, this is for cis straight white guys. Like, that's what this movie is. Whereas this movie, it was way more inclusive, even though it was like the femme version, the female version, like the big air quotes girl version. The humor was way more inclusive in a way that the first one wasn't. I feel like structurally it was way more like everybody and not just straight white guys. Like it felt way more inclusive than Ocean's 11 did throughout the entirety of it. Ocean's 11 was straight guy shit.
Yeah, I loved that female friendship won in the end. And I loved that this movie was about getting revenge on somebody that was a jerk rather than just, hey, remember, I'm also pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And we're back for the conclusion.
So, Eric. Tell us, what did you think of Ocean's 11? Who was it for?
Ocean's 11 was for straight white men who buy fedoras at Target, and then at the barbecue that they're going to subsequently from Target, they cannot stop telling you about the one time they saw AC/DC 6 years ago at whatever ballpark is in their city. That is who Ocean's 11 is for. But with that said, because it is just straight guy action porn, I did really like it. For as problematic as it was, and for as bad as the jokes were for the most part, also fuck Casey Affleck. I don't know if we got into that, but like, fuck him. He's sucks. So with all that in mind, I still like the heist aspect. Again, big heist boy. So give me those twists and I'm on board. I know I've said that a million times on this podcast or on this episode, but like, yeah. So for that reason, I'm so sorry, Jess. I'm going to say I loved it. I'm going to do it. I did. I really did enjoy myself watching this movie.
I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that in these trying times, you found that you love something so much. You love Ocean's 11 so much that you are declaring now before our listeners and Danny and the whole world that you love this movie. You can't get enough of it, and you're going to watch it every night before bed.
Well, so much so that I'm watching the sequel and the third version of it because I'm like, I need to know where the story goes. Like an absolute foolish man just being like, oh, I need to know where these like, oh, it's so silly. But that's absolutely me.
I'm here for it.
What did you think? Who was this for? And did you like it?
I think, okay. That picture that you painted of the dude and the barbecue and Target and fedora, like, I can't think of a better image of who this is for.
Oh my gosh. Because he'll mansplain every cinematic aspect of that movie to you. And when you're like, that's cool, I'd be like, no, but like, do you really get it though? Like, do you really understand the symbology?
Like, it was about Julia Roberts the whole time. Like, if I tried to say like, oh, they weren't around, there was no women, he'll be like, no, it was about Julia. This whole movie was for her. And I'd just be like, or his fucking ego, maybe.
Yeah. But he loves her. But do you get that? Like, he loves her. Do you understand that? Like, love conquers all. And like, ultimately, like, at the end of the day, the one thing that like, all that matters is his love. Like, how are you not seeing that? Like, he loved her and he showed it. He like showed his heart to her and she saw.
It's so cute when you talk like that. I don't know if you know that, but like, man, that totally is what I look for.
It's really, trust me, I've been with many a man who is that kind of. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, bros.
No. Oh,
bros.
Blah, blah, blah. No, but you know what? It's a movie. It did a thing. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I would watch this again if Netflix no longer existed. There were no more like subscriptions. If it was back in like the 2004 era, cool, I'll watch this and I will fall asleep. Oh, man. Okay, so remake was this new, interesting, or the same, progressive, regressive, and how had the story evolved with today's ideals?
I think it was new and interesting. I think it was progressive just in the sense that like you were saying, there's not a lot of movies that are like female fronted and backed in that way, where the entire cast for the most part is all women or female presenting people. And so for that, I'm like, yeah, I want to see more of that. And this movie was fantastic. Like, fantastic performances, great writing, cool sets, gorgeous costumes. Like, it was cool and fun and just what I would hope for. I think it did a really good job at taking the original idea of like this Ocean's family and then making it, because it's not really necessarily a story about women, but making it a story that for the most part only had women in it in a way that we hardly ever see in most cinema.
It was both about women and like, I mean, when you think about like what they're stealing a necklace, and where are they doing it? They're doing it at a ball. They're doing it at like this dress up fancy event, right? And all of that. So it was a hyper feminized version, right? I mean, which had this story not been so good or so like clever in how it played out with like, the Mindy Kaling scene with like the tampon dispenser in the thing. And then she's just fucking in the bathroom going like, and those types of things. Like, I think it was just incredibly clever, but it was, when you look at the beats and the story plots and the devices and how they use them and what they are actually stealing, it really is jewelry. It's dressing up. It's, it's not like they're going to go rob a vault or something, like I think that would have been a bit more progressive. So I think what I'm trying to say is I think it was new and interesting in some really great ways. I think it was both progressive and regressive. In the ways that it was trying to be progressive, it kind of maybe overlooked that we had to remember that, okay, we're going to go get some makeup now. Okay, well, we're going to go get this jewelry. Okay, one of us is going to be a fashion designer and one of us is going to be a jeweler and one of us is going to be, so even in like their professions and everything. But I don't think that it necessarily was, I don't think it was bad. I think it was just incredibly, feminized in those sorts of ways. But I still absolutely loved it. Would I love to see another one where maybe they're stealing something other than jewelry? Maybe they're stealing like a fast car. Maybe they're stealing straight cash. Maybe they're doing something like, I would love to see something where it isn't just hyper feminized.
Give me the Fast and the Furious crossover reboot where Michelle Rodriguez is the third lead of this film.
Hell yes.
How cool would that be? Oh my God, that would be so silly. I love Michelle Rodriguez. She's so sick. But
She's great.
Like, how cool would that? That would be so fun.
That'd be so sick.
Yes, I totally agree with everything you said, and I will walk back what I said about like how it's not about women. It is about women, obviously. Like you said, everything within it was very feminized. It's like even those small moments. It's like, yeah, it was about women. It was about female things, and this,
Even in the same way, like when she's sitting at her brother's grave in the very beginning, and the old guy from Ocean's 11 comes up and is like, and this line really pissed me off because nobody would fucking say this to Danny Ocean, right? Especially him. But because she's a woman, you know, he's like, you know, sometimes knowing it will work is enough. Because I like, that's something that like, I feel like as a woman, we hear so much, like, you know, just knowing in your heart that you can be anything that you want and you could do anything you want is enough. But maybe you want to be a mom. You know, it's so hard to be out there. Like, maybe you don't want this. So putting that at the very front of this movie and having her just be like, fuck you, and be like, yeah, no, I'm going to do my own thing. Thanks.
You just saying that quote, I felt like there was a silent sweetheart at the end of that.
Exactly.
Like, might as well have just thrown in and been like, you know, you don't got to do that, sweetheart or sweetie or baby or girl or little thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like any of those little epithets, those little things to just like make women feel small, like, or or like worthless or whatever. Yeah. That the tone of that. You're so right. I didn't even catch that in this. Like, it felt very just like demeaning and patronizing. Yeah. It was incredibly patronizing. And it's only because she's a woman.
You know, I mean, people still don't realize that those are all subtle ways in which we're told that, like, we can't do, or we're made to second guess ourselves, right? Because, like, those kinds of lines are so common that like, just, you don't even think about it. And how that plays into, like, your psyche and how it just kind of sticks in there.
Yeah.
So I would love movies where we don't see that eventually, because, like, I'm tired of seeing people second guess women, but, like, people don't even realize that in itself is like a form of control, and that in itself is traumatizing and is something that many women need to go to therapy for, to unlearn, or like, anyways. So yeah, so I would love a world where we don't have to show that.
Truly. Yeah.
Anyways, so who is this for, Eric?
Am I going to be silly or am I going to be serious? I can't decide. Oh my God, what do I do?
Okay, you could do silly first.
So if I'm going to do silly first, this movie is for the panel of judges who awarded Sandra Bullock the Razzie the year she won the Oscar for The Blind Side at the same time. What was the movie she won the Razzie for? Just for fun, because I think that's very funny that she won a Razzie the same year she won an Oscar. The best and the worst. We love a versatile queen. But more earnestly and seriously, this was a movie for women. Seems too obvious, but like, yeah, it was a movie for women and for people who are against the patriarchy, who want to see feminism as a more realized and visible reality than it is. You know what I mean? I'll take it. Who do you think it was for?
I think it was definitely for Miss Rhode Island. I think you're really right in this. I know that, like, usually it's like, oh, well, it's for George Clooney, whatever. I don't know. I think the last one actually was for George Clooney. I think this one was for women, and I think we're starting to get into this age of film where, like, women are being allowed to have more stories for them. Even if there are, like, some missteps, like we talked about throughout this, like, just having, you know, every woman watching that movie, when at the very beginning, like, the dude is like, yeah, but I mean, sometimes knowing, and she's like, yeah, whatever, fuck off. And she, like, you know, walks away. Everyone was like, hell yeah, you tell him, you know, like, this is your story, right? And why do we have that reaction? Because when we're in that moment, it's hard to be that person that's like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to go and do this. You know, when people don't believe in you, it's really hard. So seeing people go against that, and then also just kind of like own that, and, you know, really, like, this dude that absolutely deserves everything that's coming to him, you know, like, seeing him get his comeuppance and seeing, like, that come from an all-female team. And also, like, while we talked about this whole movie being hyper feminized, right? I mean, I think that's also part of the strength in it, is like, they did this at the fucking Met Gala, and they stole the diamonds while they looked fucking great in these dresses and whatever, because like we talked about, beauty is very political. Beauty is this. And, you know, and I thought it was really smart how they showed, like men controlling this necklace, you know, something that wasn't even made for them.
Yeah.
And
it's like gatekeeping femininity in this way, like not allowing women access to femness.
Yeah. So I think seeing them be able to take that part of femininity back, I think is really cool. So yeah, this movie is for women, but I would like to see another film where they are not just stealing jewelry when they're pretty.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. This is not a nervous loved it or like a trepidatious loved it. This is a very, like, I loved it. I thought it was great. I saw it in theaters, thought it was great then. Again, I did think it was a little less great the third watch, but that was only because I noticed a couple things.
But you made it to 3 watches.
But I made it to 3 watches, and I still loved it. I thought it was great. I think it's a great movie. What did you think? Did you like it?
Oh my God, I loved this. I laughed so hard. I had so many of those moments where I was just like, fuck yeah! Like,
yeah.
Get it! And, you know, like, also my husband and my roommate were both like so fucking here for this and so on board. And I think part of it too probably has to do with the fact that, like, you know, we talked about when you have a female reboot of something, the bar is always going to be lower, right? Because, like, in the same way that whenever there's a remake of anything, you're going to be like, oh, this isn't going to be great. Unless for some reason it's a Batman movie because everybody's like, you know, all up on that. But so like
Batman's a cop.
I know, and he works with cops.
Batman's a cop who keeps rich people rich because he's a rich person.
I know. Ugh, Batman's a whole thing. Batman's a whole thing. But
I know. I feel like people are gonna get so mad that I said that. I mean, that's not a unique take, guys. That's not. I heard that. I am a mockingbird for words. Anyways, I keep interrupting you. What were you?
Oh no, that's
what were you gonna say?
How dare you? No, like we were all sitting there watching. We're like, okay, like, you know, let's see. But just because it's a remake and whatever, I think the thing people think is that films that are remade with women aren't going to be smart or aren't going to be original. And I think that's where these films really shine, is in that and in showing how this looks different, like when done well, right? Yeah. So we were all sitting on the couch fucking busting up laughing because this is a hilarious movie. And we had such a great time. And at the end of it, like, we were all like, this is fucking great. This is wonderful. Like, wow, this is awesome. And I would totally watch this again. I had a great time.
I think that's it.
Is that it?
You guys.
Yeah, we did it.
Thank you for listening. We did it.
We are coming up on our 1-year anniversary.
Oh,
1-year anniversary of NOTstalgia.
So it was this past week is the 1 year of when we were at Kate's plant party and we talked about like what podcast we're listening to and how we love podcasts. And we're like, we should start a podcast. And it was like, we should start a podcast. Like, what is stopping us from doing that? There's nothing. Like, so yeah, happy idea birth anniversary. What?
Happy.
I know. And we're coming up on it'll be, what was The Mummy? We put out The Mummy last October?
Oh, yeah. It was in October. I want to say it was like the second week or something. So we should do something special for that.
I know. How fun would that be?
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We'll come up with a cool 1 year episode.
And
it's been a year. Okay.
You have an idea about what we should do for our 1-year anniversary, write into us or like hit us up on the social media that we never post on. Or
our personals. We're on personals.
I mean, or personals. We're also here for that.
Reach us.
Yeah, you can write into us at NOTstalgiaPodcast@gmail.com or find us on the interwebs. If you haven't already, subscribe. Tell your friends, rate us, do a thing. That would be awesome. Thank you so much to Danny Barkley for editing our podcast. And thank you for listening. And thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Jess. I love doing this podcast.
Me too. And remember, stay cute.
And stay critical. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.